Mr. Speaker, will you please call the House to order?
The bill is passed.
We'd like to get a budget that represents the interests of the people who are standing here with me now.
To be part of the struggle to achieve a better society for all.
Hi, I'm Tom Abinanti. I'm an assemblyman. I represent the towns of Greenburgh and Mount Pleasant and all of the communities in Greenburgh and Mount Pleasant. And this is Assembly Update, where we discuss issues of importance to our communities and to people throughout the state of New York. Today, my guest is Wini Schiff. Wini is the Associate Executive Director for Legislative Affairs. That's a big title, Wini, for the Interagency Council of Developmental Disability Agencies. Wini, this is our second conversation. We previously had a conversation about what your agencies do, how they're funded. But just give me a quick summary of what is the IAC?
The Interagency Council of Developmental Disabilities is a trade association. We represent about 140 providers of services to from early intervention for infants and toddlers all the way through old age. And we are from Rockland County, Westchester, all of New York City, Nassau and Suffolk counties on Long Island, and a few members in Western New York and the Capital District.
The last time we spoke about the staffing crisis, which all employers around the country are facing, but is hitting the disability field very, very hard. But there are some other problems that are also facing this area. And you and I were talking before about employment for people with disabilities. The numbers that I've seen are horrendous. There's so few of the people who want to work able to get jobs, whether they have physical disabilities or developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities. There are just so many of them that can't get into the workforce. Is that something that you're finding? I mean, is that something you're dealing with?
Absolutely. And, we've been working to try to increase employment opportunities for people with developmental disabilities, which is my world. I've been doing it for 35 years. And while we place great workers that employers are very happy to include in the workforce, because of regulatory and access issues, it's just been very difficult, and we have made very little progress over all the years.
Now, we held a hearing not long ago to discuss access to the employment market for people with disabilities, and you were part of it. And as you recall, we went on for 10 hours. We had 58 witnesses, and we received testimony from countless others, all highlighting the problem of people with disabilities not being able to get into the job market. What I was impressed with was the sincerity of so many people, the different ideas that people had, and how they really wanted to help people with disabilities get a purpose in life, have something meaningful to do. And we worked together and came up with a package of bills. My colleagues responded. We have several of the assembly members who have come up with different bills, introduced them, and together we held a press conference, and it seemed like we had a very, very good turnout.
I can't tell you how grateful we advocates are for the work of you and your colleagues. This is just an amazing thing. It's a new day. I was saying before that I worked 35 years and made very little progress. I feel that that's all about to change. And that began with your hearing. You're right. We've been all doing this because we realize that it's not just a job. Work transforms people. It does give us a purpose in life. It does that for all of us. And to deny a group of people, because they have disabilities, that opportunity to contribute is unbelievable. So we're making a change now, and it's just wonderful. Those bills are going to make a big difference to remove some of those barriers that I pointed to before.
It's also a change of attitude. We've got to get employers to look at people's abilities, not look at why they have a title of or tag of disability. People with disabilities are not disabled. They are able to work. They are able to contribute. We just need to identify their strengths and emphasize those strengths.
And part of it is the facilitation that a provider can offer, and part of it is job matching, because we all have specific abilities, and it's just about finding out what the ways that we can contribute the best way.
I was very impressed with the testimony by the professor from Cornell when he spoke about trying to educate employers to look at their needs differently, not look at, say, well, I need these 3 round pegs to fit in these 3 round holes, but to look at the job that has to get done and say, is there a way that I can match, as you said, the abilities of people with disabilities and accomplish the job that way? I always give the example of, instead of hiring 3 people to do A, B, and C, how about if you hire 1 person to do A, 1 person to do B, 1 person to do C, and have them work together as a team. You could have a person in a wheelchair who is totally capable, except for the fact that she happens to be in a wheelchair, so she can't lift boxes, she can't open and close doors or whatever, and she could work with 2 people with developmental disabilities who need guidance. And now you have a team, and she can give direction, they can do the physical work, she can direct them on what to do, and you've got 3 people employed, accomplishing what any other 3 people can do by looking at the tasks that have to be done a different way.
What you're talking about is called customized employment. It makes perfect sense for workers and for employers, because then the job gets done the best way it can. The other thing that you were talking about is education for the business community as to the benefits of hiring people, and also just how to do a reasonable accommodation. We provide people called job coaches, which are another type of direct support professional who helps people learn jobs. One of your bills addresses that in a beautiful way. So it's a partnership between New York State Industries for the Disabled and the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. And it would provide training for employers in all of those things that they need in order to access this very underutilized and wonderful workforce.
Yeah, it's really ironic that we have, it's like 70% of the people with disabilities in the country are not working. And we have such a job shortage, a worker shortage in this country. So we've got to match the 2. Let's get people working. Let's not have them just sitting around in some kind of a day program that's particularly during the pandemic time where they're not out doing a lot. Let's get them into jobs. Look, I've seen people, the happiest time of their day is when they're working. They're contributing, they're meeting other people, they're working with other people. So, as you said before, we're all like that. We enjoy what we do, and we're depriving people with disabilities of that opportunity. The other thing that has been of concern to me is the lack of housing opportunities for people with disabilities. Whether they have a physical disability or whether they have a developmental disability, OPWDD has stopped funding, pretty much, new residential opportunities. Have you seen that? And have you seen an impact from that?
What it is that there is just not enough funding to provide housing for all the people who need it. So actually, people are stuck sometimes living in nursing homes or in emergency rooms for a long, long time, or stuck in residential school placements because there's no place for them to come back to when they graduate from school at 21. But this year, the governor did put a few things in her budget proposal, and they will be very, very helpful. There are 2 funding streams that would help people to live in their own apartments, and the rent subsidy under those programs has been so much lower than the market rate for rentals that it's been nearly impossible to keep people in their apartments or to get them new placements in apartments. So that's going to be corrected in the governor's budget. And she's also putting an additional $15 million in, which is not that much, but it's
a start.
To increase affordable housing opportunities. But we also need certified housing, which would provide 24/7 support for the people who need it.
It's good to see that the governor recognizes that this is an area that has been ignored for a long, long time. The previous governor really did not seem interested in engaging in any conversation about the needs of people with disabilities. And since I've been chair of this committee, which has only been about a year now, I have been out across the state talking to people, either in person or by Zoom, and finding the tremendous need throughout the state for additional housing opportunities. And there are people out there who want to try different ways of providing housing. There are parents out there who are willing to do the work to set up housing for their kids who are just coming out of school. There are relatives who want to make sure that their relatives, their cousins, their uncles, their brothers and sisters are living in a quality environment. And OPWDD has not been responsive. And as you said, it really comes down to money. The longer they drag their feet, the longer these people end up living with their relatives or at home with their parents. And that keeps the cost down for OPWDD. So I think you're right. You've identified the problem. We've got to put more money into the budget. So OPWDD is not afraid to approve these different approaches. I'm sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
If we collect data and if we know who needs what and where, then we would be more able to allocate funding to support people in the way they need it the most. So that has been ignored. We are very hopeful that it won't be ignored going forward.
This brings us to the topic of how do we reform OPWDD. We've got an old agency that was set up recognizing that people with disabilities had problems not just in the health field, not just in the education field, not just in the behavioral field, but OPWDD was set up to deal with the whole life. And it seems to have forgotten that mission. And it seems to me that we've got to get back to that. And I know you're aware of that, and I know you've been pushing for that.
So we are very, very appreciative of the new commissioner's actions on our behalf and her willingness to listen and her understanding of the issues and the needs. Our system has grown over time, and it hasn't necessarily grown in a way that makes sense. So she's got a work cut out for her to make sense out of and to make reforms. We have regulations in place that have been layered on each other, and all of that needs to be looked at in order to go forward in the most cost-effective and beneficial way to the people that we support.
I can't help but notice the irony that here we are in different parts of the state talking on modern communications, right? Modern technology. And yet so many of the places where people with disabilities live don't have the modern technology. The state homes don't have internet available to people with disabilities in their own homes. And it seems to me that if we want to reform the system, one of the places we have to start is to make sure that people with disabilities have access to all of the modern technology so that they can participate from their homes and maybe even work from their homes just like everybody else during this pandemic.
Technology makes an amazing difference in all of our lives, and everyone should have equal access. And I do believe we're getting better at that, but we do have our work to do in that area too.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for your efforts. You're leading the charge out there. I see you all of the time. You used to be walking the halls of the legislature. Now you're Zooming with everyone, and you keep up the pressure. You're doing a great job. Thank all of those who work with you at IAC. The people with disabilities are dependent on you, so thank you very much for your efforts. Okay. I want to thank all of you who at home who've joined us. I'm Tom Abinanti. I represent the 92nd Assembly District, Greenberg and Mount Pleasant. If my office could be of help to you on any matter, please don't hesitate to call 914-631-1605. Thank you for joining us.